Hey guys, welcome to the Beer Banter. Today we have a very special guest. We have Kaustubh Pandey. He's a sports journalist. So I have been following Kaustubh for the last 6 7 months. So according to me, there are two types of journalists. One who thrive of negativity and the others who thrive of positivity. And Kaustubh definitely belongs to the second category. So welcome Kaustubh. Welcome to Beer Banters podcast. How are you? How's lockdown treating you?
Thanks a lot. I'm very good. I mean, it's been pretty ordinary for me in the sense that I've been doing whatever I've been doing for the last 6 to 7 years in the same way because it just allows me more time to uh, do things in a better manner and maybe learn new things.
So you're in Delhi right now. You're in India.
Yeah, back in India.
Okay.
Okay, so
Ritwik?
before we actually get into the questions, I'd like to introduce the series that we are doing. So we all know that sports is a very big industry, and in developing countries, it is also one of the highest revenue generating industry. And in India, there are certain steps that are being taken so that sports becomes one of the major industry. The moving from only cricket to the Kabaddi Premier League or the Hockey League, it has been a good step. But still, some might say that there is a stigma that the careers around the sport, not actually playing the sport, the careers around the sport are not mainstream. But I'd like to think that in the coming generation, a lot of enormous crop of youngsters will embrace the careers, and one such person is Kaustubh. So that's why we have him on a series, and we plan to bring many more.
So Kaustubh has written for the Manchester Evening News. He's also featured on the Manchester United's website. He's written for the Times. He's written for Calcio Mercato. He's a regular on the Get Football Network. So Kaustubh, how did this journey start? What was the process like? Uh, is something that you always wanted to do this? When did you decide that you wanted to do sports journalism?
I mean, I was constantly writing poems and regular stories. I mean, by regular stories, I mean stuff like maybe when I used to watch stuff like Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z back in maybe class third or class fourth, I used to write general storylines and stuff, or maybe watch WWE and watch just go on writing about how these stories can be and how one wrestler comes in, gives him this cracking promo, and the other wrestler comes in, stuff like that. So I just started with that, and I thought I have this thing for writing where I can write a lot of things about a lot of different topics because I also used to write fiction and non-fiction stories, which I'm not sure made sense, or if they made sense, I'm not sure how much sense they made. But uh, that's how it really began. I mean, at that point, I wasn't really sure if this was going to be a career or not. It maybe just uh, a, something which allowed me to pass my time. And even at that time, I used to watch a lot of sports. Football wasn't my thing back then. I was really bored by football because on Indian TV you usually had cricket coming in, and then you used to have these highlights of football matches when Thierry Henry and these guys used to play. I mean, I wasn't exactly interested in it at that point, but I used to ride a lot even at that point of time. So when I reached my, I think, 10th class, I had this plan of maybe writing a storybook or maybe a fiction book. I mean, I wrote it down. It was about 70 chapters or something. It was a nonsensical story. I've got to agree with that. But it was just uh, a spark where I thought that maybe I can make a career out of this. And that was when I was used to watch a lot of football. I mean, I started watching it back in maybe 2007 or 8 at that point. So I used to watch football, cricket, and WWE quite a lot. So a point came when, for every average Indian teenager, when you've got to decide your stream and all that nonsense that the Indian education system has forced us to deal with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I initially had science, but then I switched to humanities because I decided maybe I wanted to do something else instead of science. It's not like I hated science or I hated physics. I hated math, but that's a completely different thing. But I decided maybe I should just go with humanities and maybe make sure that I continue to develop in this field of writing, because I clearly had a background in it. I had an interest in it, and I had a passion for football. But still, back then, there was nothing really, anything concrete that maybe I want to make a career out of this. It was just out of basic interest. I think it was in class 11th itself when I started writing. Uh, or I think it was Give Me Sport at that point, and then a bit
Yeah.
for Sportspedia as well. So it was again out of just passion, just out of interest, just to pass my time after I come back from school and stuff. So after, I mean, I think when I graduated, not graduated, I mean, sorry, when school ended, uh, I went to Price University, did journalism honors there. So around that point, I realized that I'm going to make a career out of this, but I actually knew that sports journalism isn't a field in India, in the sense that you can't quite uh, earn big or maybe become a prominent personality in this field. But I just wanted to make sure that I just followed my passion. I mean, that's what it was. I have never exactly been a social person otherwise, so that helped a lot, because back at Christ University, I saw a lot of people partying all the time, but I've never gone out to a single party. So that helped a lot. I mean, that's something which comes personality wise. But when others maybe went out and partied and stuff, I was just constantly writing or watching football matches. And back then, in at Christ, I sort of realized that I want to make a career out of this, because I started writing for these football times and all these prominent places, and I was pretty much enjoying it. And a lot of stuff that I did was unpaid; it was free, so I wasn't exactly motivated by money either. It was again out of passion, but I wanted to make a career out of it. I didn't really care if I get less money than my counterparts or uh, the other friends who were uh, trying to become successful engineers and stuff. Because in India, we live in a society where you always need to compare. We live that Sharma ji ka beta thing. That's pretty ordinary in our society. I never really believed in that. Never believed in marks and how much you get out of 50. It's an unjust way of judging people. I've constantly just done one thing. Even at Christ, I never got like 50 out of 50. Never bothered. Just once, I think I got 42 out of 50. Never really cared about it. So then after that ended, I pursued post journalism, which was just a specific thing from Salford University, Manchester. So of course, by that time, I realized that this is going to be my career. But I still wasn't sure how big I'm going to make in this field. But I just wanted to do it. I went along with it, and the experiences I got there were amazing. I mean, the sort of stuff that I did in just football or maybe other sports were something that you'll never ever get in India. I mean, it's not a shot at India, because India is
Yeah.
completely different, thrives at different things. But the stuff I learned there was something surreal for someone who comes from a country where you haven't exactly got a culture for football. So I think, yeah, that's
Yeah.
how it really started. But it's changed a lot. But yeah, it didn't quite start off as something that I saw as a job or a profession. Just started off as a passion. I think it still is a passion. Money comes way further down the line.
Yeah, you talked about how in India there is a lot of comparison, the Sarmaji ka beta thing. What about your family? How supportive were they when you chose this field, not being a mainstream field?
I mean, they're still massively supportive. I mean, without them, I think I'll probably be somewhere doing some engineering and stuff. I mean, the boring stuff, which I call. I don't know if you guys pursue engineering or not.
We
I'm
both
sorry.
Yeah,
are we both
we
are
both
studying
are pursuing
engineering.
engineering.
Okay, okay. So I mean, yeah, it's
No, but we completely agree.
okay. Okay, I know. I understand that from a lot of engineering friends of mine. But yeah, I mean, if not for them, I would probably be stuck up in some other field, which I didn't exactly enjoy, because they've constantly like supported me throughout. I mean, we see a lot of parents. I mean, that's not a criticism of other parents. I mean, they've got different views of thinking, but they just think that you can't take risks in your life, because in India we uh, tend to pursue a more risk-free solution to our lives, where we need to be more safer in the sense that we need to have an assurance that after 10 years we need to earn this much. We sort of just plan things for even a kid is even born. So it it's it was pretty different for me in the sense that initially my parents used to tell me that you because engineering was the fad at that point, still probably is. I used to go to Fiji a lot. I mean, it was a real headache. I mean, I used to come back, miss some football matches, and it was a pure headache. And I mean, I left Fiji after, I mean, about 3 or 4 months. It was a nightmare, I must say. And then, I mean, that's just an example how my parents have supported me. They still do. I mean, I've got to say they're probably my biggest critic, bigger than me, even though I call myself a huge critic of mine, but they're still my biggest critic.
So you got this love for sports from your parents? Like,
No,
were
no,
they
no, not
ardent football fans?
no, no. I mean, they do watch quite a lot of cricket, but football came just because I think one of my neighbors he gave me a CD of FIFA 2002. I mean, I used to score
2000.
goals from halfway line from with Michael Owen and stuff. Uh, I think
Devashi.
that's what really sparked my passion for football, because before that I was hardly interested in. So it I still follow cricket. That's a lot of it is down to how people in my family love cricket. So yeah, that's how it was.
So you have talked about the process of how you chose journalism. So what changes do you see in yourself, like the first Kaustubh Pandey 5 years ago and the now Kaustubh Pandey? What changes do you see in yourself?
I mean, in terms of how I write, I mean, early on when this was around the first year of Christ, or maybe second year of Christ, I used to get a lot of people who used to tell me that my writing's pretty clunky in the sense that um, I used to add a lot of pointless words, which made sense for the article, but it just made the reading a lot more complicated, which weren't exactly needed. A lot of flowery words or adjectives and stuff. So that's one thing that every writer sort of faces when they start off in their journey for writing. So that's one thing which is sort of cut down in the way I write stuff, and it's a big thing because it's something that a lot of experienced writers still face. I still have it, I must say, but it's sort of reduced over a period of time. And I think the passion has remained the same, but yeah, I think I've maybe become a bit more professional in the sense that back in those days I used to be a bit more casual, like I could do stuff on my own whenever I wanted. It's a bit different now because I do so much. I mean, apart from what I do for, since I work for Snack Media as well, there's a lot of other stuff that I do. So it's about becoming professional as you grow older as well, because unless and until you, this is one such field which requires you to be active almost in a 24/7 manner. It's not where
Yeah.
it's a 9 hour job or 8 hour job. It's a 24/7 thing. So uh, we used to study back in college that it's a 24/7 job, and I didn't quite realize that at that point. Even I used to uh, write on a freelance basis, but over a period of time I realized that journalism, or basically just post journalism, is a 24/7 job.
Yeah, yeah, we saw
Yeah.
that with Fabrizio Romano's video that BR Football published, like
Yeah,
how he goes about his day. It's a
yeah.
tedious job. I
Yeah.
mean,
He hardly
24 hours, and
sleeps.
even yeah, Ritwik.
Yeah. So uh, we've talked about how you've evolved, but is there a specific process that you follow while writing your articles, a routine, or some things that you always do when you're writing an article?
It's, I mean, a lot of people forget this, that they think that writing an article is the most important thing, when I feel it's not just about what you write. It's about the input you get, in the sense that uh, if you read a lot of stuff, you're more likely to write a lot better. You give out a lot more knowledge and a lot more information to the readers. That's something that people don't quite realize, because football is one such field where you can think as much as you want that you know everything about football, but if you think so, you probably just know the letter F of football. So you can't pretend that you know everything and you can write everything you want. You can't know, just simply can't know each and everything about football. People need to realize that, and just make sure that you read as much books, read as many articles as you can before you start writing, or at the time of writing when you do background research for articles and stuff. That's the most important thing, because unless and until you don't have quality input, you won't get quality output. So that's one thing which is, for me, is the most important thing. A lot of other stuff, I think, improves with time, because as I said, my writing wasn't the best. Maybe when I was in grade 11th, of course it wasn't, because I go back to those articles that I used to write, and I sometimes cringe at those, because I'm not quite sure how I used to write all that. So it's just a process of evolution, a natural process of evolution that people need to understand, and developing especially for the sort of society we live in, the times we live in. It's important to have a social media foundation, or at least some sort of a background there. That also comes with time, and it's things like these that people usually don't realize. They think that it's a quick fix. It's not exactly a quick fix. It takes about 6, 7, maybe just 5 years for you to improve, and probably maybe just satisfy yourself, and to reach the sort of level that you really want to reach.
We have seen that many of your articles are data driven. So, what
Yeah,
role does data analysis play in modern football?
I think you look at clubs like maybe Liverpool, because I think Liverpool are probably for me the best run club in the world, and I think Bayern Munich comes second for me because of
Yeah.
how they sometimes mess stuff up before they won the Champions League and the transfers that they did. I mean, because these are clubs that uh, tend to make a difference on the pitch and off the pitch as well. Because even in the recent summer transfer window, you couldn't help but admire the sort of deals that they did in the market in terms of either selling players for Liverpool, or signing players, or just signing players for when it comes to just Bayern Munich. Uh, these are clubs that are driven by data. You look at a club like Brentford and the great stuff that they constantly do
Yeah.
on the pitch and off the pitch. They are run by Matthew Benham, who also runs Michelin in Denmark. So these are clubs that look to make a difference, and all these clubs are data driven. You look at a club like Man United, sadly, they're not exactly a data driven club. They're more, you of course, more commercial stuff and more social media traffic stuff. So these are the sort of clubs that are making the difference. And I mean, if you look at a club like maybe West Ham as well, they are a club who don't exactly look at data at any point in their life. I think they do have scouts all over England, but they never really listen to recommendations, because what David Moyes usually does is he's got this whole show. I think I've read this somewhere in a book that what David Moyes likes is he usually has this huge short list of players that he ideally wants on his team, and it's his final decision as to what he really wants. And none of them are actually scouted on in terms of data. They're scouted by scouts who go to games and watch these players. I mean, it's not a wrong thing, but the way the the way the game is, the direction in which the game is going, the teams that have data-driven recruitment are probably succeeding. I mean, there are of course clubs where they don't exactly pay too much attention to data. You look at Spurs. Mourinho isn't exactly a data guy. He's more like a person who likes the mentality of the players, which is of course very important, because
Con-
that's what his style is. But yeah, I think that's the way forward. And the clubs that are using data and analytics for their recruitment and the way they go are succeeding more than the others.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but probably one of the biggest example of a data-driven transfer for me is Mohamed Salah, because no
Yeah,
one predicted this amount of output from Mohamed Salah, but
yeah,
the system just suits perfectly for him. Like any Liverpool transfer, for example.
Because I
Uh,
think for Salah
yeah.
in Serie A, he back at Roma, not at Fiorentina, he was almost a winger who used to play as a striker a lot of time, and he also used to score a lot of headers playing beside Edin Dzeko when he was in his loan spell there. Both of them were in their loan spell at Roma. So I think Liverpool probably saw that and some other short maps and all that stuff. And I think it was in a game against Watford in maybe the first three games of
First
that
game, yeah.
season,
Yeah, yeah. It was the first
where
game of the season.
uh, yeah, where they really saw why they signed Mohamed Salah. I think every single signing they make is backed by those sort of data analytics things.
So, to summarize, what kind of advice would you give to a person who's just starting out or thinking about having a career in this?
I think the most important thing that I get a lot of people messaging me asking uh, how to make a career in sports journalism or just football journalism or maybe journalism in general. What they often don't realize is this isn't a field where you necessarily become a millionaire uh, or maybe you earn loads of money. This isn't a field for that unless you get too lucky and you get a job outside and stuff. Because a lot of these people are coming to me to ask if I know of any paid opportunities and stuff. When paid opportunities aren't exactly easy to come in this field. So even I myself had to work for free for about maybe 3 or 4 years up until I graduated from Price. So it's yeah about 5 years or something. It was only after that that I really started to get paid on a regular basis. So it's one thing that they really need to keep in mind as soon as they start, because I'm someone who had always had a background in writing and in journalism and stuff. So I had this sort of an advantage where I could spend a lot of time on writing, but I didn't quite need the money for it. Wasn't exactly looking for money because a lot of people who have different backgrounds other than humanities or journalism who step into this field, who see this as a job and not as a passion sometimes, they want to make money out of this when it's not an easy task. It takes a lot of time. And secondly, I think, as I just touched upon it, that it takes quite a while for you to get established in this field. And a lot of it is again down to money because if a lot of people start to feel a bit disappointed when they don't get money because it's they're all of them are human and I understand why they do it. But this isn't exactly a field for that. It takes a lot of time for you to get established and become something that you really want to become, reach the level that you want to become. So I think it it's all a process. Like Louis Van Gaal used to say at Man United, and people used to laugh at him. I sort of really like him for a lot of things that he did, and he always used to say that it's a process. And even in journalism, sports journalism, or football journalism, I think it's again a process. It takes a while for you to maybe just stand on your own feet and do your own stuff and establish a name for yourself. So I mean, it's a bit patronizing coming from me because I had this background, but if people really want to do this, it's very important to keep on maybe writing stuff from a very early age. I mean, I'm not generalizing it, but it really helps if you've written a lot of stuff before you start writing because you've got a background or a habit of writing stuff. A lot of people don't exactly have this huge habit of writing stuff on a regular basis, which doesn't exactly help them every single time. So yeah, I think these three things are very, very important. Otherwise, you've got to work hard. I mean, you've really got to work